Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be able to share with you today. We're going to talk as friends, and by the end, we'll find applications for our personal lives and our professional lives. So, with that in mind, this session engaging big ideas through music. I'm hoping that you'll walk away with a sense that that you'll know how to define a big idea, that you'll reflect and explore a big idea in musical examples I'll provide, and then that you'll be able to apply this to your personal wellness and your artistic growth. And the hope is that you'll walk away with an understanding that music is one way we can hear big ideas in action, and that can inspire us. So when I say big idea, I'm talking about a concept. We deal with life concepts all the time: change, community, identity. And when you take that and turn it into a driving idea, it might take one of two forms. That might be a point of inquiry. That's a driving question that you investigate across contexts. Or that concept might become a point of view. And that's kind of when you take a concept and make a generalization about it, and then you test its truth or its validity. Both of these could be how we describe a big idea today. So I'll give you an example. Let's take the idea of nostalgia, which is a concept that often comes up when we're alone and reflecting a lot. A point of inquiry about nostalgia might read, how do people use nostalgia to help themselves feel better? How do people use nostalgia to help themselves feel better? That would be a point of inquiry. A point of view might take it a step further and say something that's true about it. So that might read, people feel nostalgia when they remember a past experience for its best qualities. Both of those statements are what I'm considering a big idea for this session, and both are worth investigating. So why big ideas? When I'm allowing, at least in my personal artistry, when I'm allowing big ideas to drive my actions, I find my wellness and my growth improve. Big ideas often push me to advance my technique because I want my point of view about that concept to be really clear. My artistic growth is more meaningful because I have to combine facts and skills and understandings in such a way, all at the same time, in order to really express that idea. So there's a lot of things that come together when I'm allowing big ideas to drive my actions. And as far as my wellness, it helps me feel connected to myself and my environment when I'm wrestling with these kind of concepts, life concepts, in my artistry. So I'd like to give you a chance to reflect on a big idea, and it is this: we draw inspiration from past contexts to inspire the present. We draw inspiration from past contexts to inspire the present. I'm going to ask that whatever you have with you, maybe a pencil and journal, that you write freely for about a minute about this big idea. In which contexts or experiences do you see this big idea to be true? How in your personal life, in your artistry, professionally? I just want you to reflect on a moment how drawing inspiration from past experiences can inspire the present. So I'll give you a minute. So again, how do you know this statement to be true? So I'd like to invite a few of you to share. So go ahead and wrap up your last thought. And you have a choice how you want to share it. You can type into the chat and I'll read some of them aloud. Or if you would like to read by audio and or video, just type the word stage in next to your name in the chat, and that will let us know that you're going to unmute and we'll focus on you. So either using the chat feature by text, or if you'd like to be on video or audio sharing, just type the word stage next to your name. So how have you found this idea of drawing inspiration from past contexts to be true? Let's see what we have. Okay, Nicole is going to share, and then Amy. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
So I wrote down that past experiences serve as teaching tools to make informed decisions for how to plan for the present. And experience allows us to make mistakes and learn from them to help us make more informed decisions about the present moment.
I can find so many contexts where that is absolutely true. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
And Amy?
Sure. I wrote that we all got to this moment in different ways. We all had different experiences, different people, different resources, etc. However, all of those things in our past influence our new experiences. So, for example, in the most recent present, all of those things might influence how I respond to COVID-19 versus how someone else responds to quarantine or whatever.
And I hear like a theme of diversity and different responses in that too. So that's worth investigating. Thank you. And Erin, would you like to share?
I would love to share. So what immediately came to mind is that your past informs your present. You can only teach what you know, and you can only share what you have experienced. And it reminded me of when I've taken acting courses, and we're taught that you can only share emotionally what you've experienced emotionally, but you might have to use what you do know to make it into something that other people can relate to. So like if your character has recently lost a loved one that they were very close to, but you've never experienced that maybe, but you've lost a pet that you love, then you can pull from that same emotional experience. So when you're teaching, you can do the same type of thing where you can connect with others, even though you haven't experienced the exact same thing.
I agree, and I hear that it's not only in your artistry, but it's also in your professional realm as an educator that you're finding this to be true. I'm also noticing that you're saying that there is a level of relatability that comes with this statement. And I'd even argue that other statements that are rooted in big ideas can do the same thing. So thank you, Erin. Yeah. So I'm picked this because it's something that's near and dear, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. This big idea, but we draw inspiration from past contexts to inspire the present. It transfers. You can investigate this statement across multiple contexts, like your history, your personal life, the lives of others. It can be explored in the arts and non-art subjects. So like we can look how people drew inspiration from the past in literature, or how one discovery in the past might inform a present action in science. We can explore sampling as it happens in visual arts. So this statement can be applied to a lot of different disciplines, and of course music. So that's what we're here to do. So we draw inspiration from past contexts is actually something that I came to during this time of quarantine. One of the first ideas I realized during COVID-19 is that it's affecting communities of color differently. And I asked, why is that impact different? And I also asked, how has our country rebounded from tragedy and disaster? And particularly Black people, as their history has shown. And one of my, then I'm looking at what's happening in all over the news now, and I'm seeing that this is something I need to wrestle with. And so where do I get inspiration from to deal with this present? I look to the music of African Americans. So for our session today, we're going to look within the genre of music by African Americans to explore this big idea of drawing inspiration from the past. So in a moment, I'm going to sing for you an African American spiritual, and I'd like for you to reflect on its lyrics. Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel, and why not for every man? He delivered Daniel from the lion's den, Jonah from the belly of the whale, and the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, and why not every man? African Americans, when they were in slavery, would sing this spiritual to meet their sadness about their situation with hope that one day they would be free from slavery. And they drew upon, especially in these words, the biblical stories of people who were delivered from their circumstances through faith, generations before them. And these these stories are captured in the lyrics of these songs. So you can apply that idea to your own wellness. What lyrics of your past capture who you are at this moment or where you'd like to be? And I'd like you to think about that for a moment. You can jot some ideas in your journal. But I would like you to think what lyrics of your past could either capture who you are at this moment or where you'd like to be. And is it EJ? Thank you. So you'll have a moment in a bit to share some of the lyrics that you're thinking of that capture either who you are at this moment or where you'd like to be. But I'd also like to share some other African American spirituals with you. The rhythms of spirituals were also inspired from the past. They were often syncopated, which means you can hear long sounds stressed in between beats. If you listen to these two examples, if this is the steady beat, I want you to listen to how words like in and on happen in between beats. Those sounds kind of stick out to you. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many or more. And can you hear what I'm talking about? You can kind of thumbs up. But yeah, there's a lot of sounds, thank you, Ashley, sounds that happen in between beats. And these rhythms really were drawn from the music of West Africa, because syncopation is consistently used in that music across history. And African Americans who were in slavery were drawing upon the rhythms of these cultures that they were once a part of in Africa. So let's apply this idea to ourselves. Are there any predominant rhythms in a song that get you up and moving the way you did when you were younger or in a more free state? Can you think of a song that has this effect? I want you to think for a moment and jot some ideas down if you choose. And I'm letting you know there'll be a chance for us all to share in a moment. So again, which song and its rhythms help you move freely? It's really cool on my end to see your thinking because I see the movement happening. All right, so let's chat for a bit. You can either use the stage feature or the chat. And when you share, you're going to share either a lyric that you can draw an inspiration from, or if it's the rhythms in the song, tell me the name of the song. So you can write in the chat via text, or you can type the word stage and we'll bring you on stage to share. So either lyrics or the name of a song with rhythms that get you up and moving. And again, if you're not on chat, on video, you're welcome to write it in the chat. Ooh, Shake Everything You Got by, am I saying this right, Maceo Parker?
Maceo Parker. He was the saxophonist for James Brown.
Oh, I should know that. Thank you for trying it. What else do we have? Oh, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, I Know More. Great syncopation, so a lot of long sounds in between beats. Bob Marley, One Love. I feel like that could be a soundtrack to these last days of school before summer begins. Yes. And I would even argue that that could be a song that just listening to the rhythms in it could get me moving. Woke up feeling like I just run from for president, even if there ain't no precedent. Boy, I love to play on words on that. And I'll share one more to close us out. Anytime I listen to New Jack Swing, it reminds me of when I was younger. So it doesn't matter what the words are, just that music alone makes me feel like I did when I was little. And so when I look at your responses and I think of my responses, I see diversity. And that diversity came because we listened to the music very closely and we found some things that we could draw inspiration from. And what we're resulting with is some musical examples across time periods, across genres, that could be other study or could inspire us to do something with. Ooh, Uptown Funk, yes, Wayne Martin says Uptown Funk, which reminds me both of when it came out and the music that inspires it, so that's great. So let's continue with this big idea. We draw inspiration from past contexts to inspire the present. Let's play a game. I'm gonna play a song by Lead Belly called Good Morning Blues. Your job is to write down 10 sounds or qualities you notice in the music in no more than 3-word phrases. So you can say saxophone or fast tempo, and you'll do this in your journal. And then I will let you know when we're gonna share out. So we're gonna listen and write down 10 things we notice.
Good morning, blue. Good Lord, do you do? Good morning, blue. Good Lord, do you do? I'm doing all right. Good morning. How are you? Good morning, blue. Good Lord, do you do? Good morning, blue. Good Lord, do you do?
So we're going to use the chat only for now. Can you type down at least one of your ideas that you've noticed in the music? And I'm going to read them out loud. So what did we notice about that? 12-bar blues, instantly. We have Boogie Woogie, especially when that piano came in. A cello rondo, yeah, especially between the first section and what we just ended with. Any other things we notice? Field horn type of moaning. Yeah, it's a very distinct kind of singing. And we'll take one more. Something we notice in the music. Any instruments? Piano, yeah. So we heard a voice, and that voice was singing some lyrics, and those lyrics were very important. And often people, when they're thinking about big ideas in music, they go right for the lyrics, and that's a great strategy. Lyrics are often the first place people go, And in this song, it's about greeting the present for what it is. And if you do that, the future becomes brighter. So just by saying that you have the blues, you're acknowledging it, and therefore you feel just a bit better. But we can also find inspiration in the other layers of the music. It was great that we saw in the chat field holler type of moan, because that vocal style and timbre draws upon the original singing style of spirituals, and also the West African tradition of that charismatic storyteller, the griot. And so his style of singing in his present, lead belly, is drawing inspiration from a generation before him. And so it's really how all the lyrics, the singing style, and the timbre coming together that really expresses this big idea of drawing inspiration from the past. Let's play the same game. Here's another example a little bit later. This is jazz. And this time when you jot 10 things down, if you notice your ideas that you wrote the first round were more general, try to focus on smaller details. And if you felt like your list, when you look at it, is more for details like instrument names or that there was like a voice, then try to think more about how the music comes together, like the tempo and the speed or the dynamics, the loudness of the music. And then if you want to skip that and just type in the chat, you can do that too. So here is Free Jazz by Ornette Coleman. Uh-oh, let's try that again. Go ahead and start typing in the chat. What do you notice about this music? I can't even say it. Cacophonous. That was my best shot. And I agree, it sounds like it is. Yeah. Any instruments you hear? Oh, you're waking the baby with the shot. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to pause that for a moment. What did we notice? Chaos was my exact word that I wrote down. Let's, free to be. Ooh, I love that. And it's interesting that that's in the title, free, yeah. So I noticed right away the instruments and how they're coming together. And in another context, that would sound very different. The textures and timbres of this music is drawing upon military bands. So right before jazz, John Philip Sousa, like those kind of marching band sounds, that was really popular. Well, now you have those same instruments, but they're playing in a way that more mimics a voice. So you have a lot of speaking sounds, chatting, conversation. And part of how that is achieved is through improvisation. So there's some of it that is just on the spot. It gives it that spontaneous quality. And I really feel like that's a social commentary on the time period they were in, especially in this later part of jazz. It broke the rules of jazz at that time, and it was right alongside the struggle for equality that African Americans were enduring in the 1960s especially. So the sound of all of these elements, the textures and timbres, the musical actions of improvising, and then how it sits in a context are all coming together to give you a feeling, a commentary on the need for freedom. So I'm going to let this play a little bit longer, just so you can think on this, that big ideas really can be expressed without words, that if you listen to the layers of the music, you can find big ideas in action, not just by listening to the music in its totality. So I'm going to play a little bit more of it. I want you to think about how this really does capture a big idea, even though it doesn't have any words. So we have looked at several music examples so far, and we're kind of moving more towards the present. In the civil rights era, freedom songs were often drawing inspiration from older African American spirituals. Here is the song "Oh Freedom," and it is based on an African American spiritual. So both the melody and lyrics come from a spiritual, but they were repurposed to fit their current context. In this case, ending racial segregation in the South. This could be done today. We could replace some of those words and talk about any number of current events. So in this case, it's both the lyrics and the melody that are a representation of reflecting on the past. This repurposing became widely popular in pop music. The creation of funk and soul, and I love that we mentioned James Brown earlier, because he drew inspiration from the past, and so did artists like Aretha Franklin. And they really owe themselves to jazz. The improvisation, the repetition, the charisma was part of jazz and blues music, and they took that into funk and soul. That continued into hip hop, which owes itself to funk music. So we're going to listen to a track called "They Reminisce Over You." It's by Pete Rock and CL Smooth. I am going to warn you that I've selected a clip of this that is appropriate for our discussion, but there are a few lines in the full version that are adult in nature. So if you go back and listen to the whole thing, it's kind of a disclaimer. But this part is completely appropriate. We're going to do the chat game again, so just drop one thing you notice about this music. So there are a few things that were happening in the chat. I Got a Woman, Ray Charles did this about referring to the past, I assume. And Thomas wrote, I'd have to add America the Beautiful by Ray Charles. His version is the best of any I've ever heard. And it's interesting because even though he's drawing upon the past, his interpretation just feels new for that time. So thank you for that. What did you notice about this hip hop sample? Like Jimmy's SSB. Are you talking about his improvisation towards the end? Okay, yeah. EJ, when you're talking about SSB, are you talking about his band? Oh, Star Spangled Banner. Yeah. Jimi Hendrix. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And that is a commentary on the time period, but still drawing inspiration from the past. Absolutely.
That's kind of what you were talking about, was taking something from the past and making it real for the time period that the person's in.
So what instruments did you hear in They Reminisce Over You? And if you need to hear it again, just let me know and I'll play that. Drums. That's probably the first thing that I noticed. Yeah. Saxophone is very prominent. Drum, guitar, vocals. And it's interesting we say vocals because it's not really singing in the front track, but we hear singing in the background. There are a lot of voices back there that are in the background because they've added like a reverb to them to make them sound like they're far away. It's interesting that drums came up first. That's the first thing that I think of. And really the whole idea of how they happen is by sampling. So the drum breaks of funk music from an era where blackness became a sense of pride is what is the basis for a lot of classic hip hop. You can also see this drawing inspiration from the past happening in the lyrics and texture. The lyrics are really talking about him reflecting on a lost loved one and other loved ones, especially within the Black working class community. So there's not only a theme of memory in the song, but the way the song is constructed expresses the big idea of drawing inspiration from the past. From the saxophone that you mentioned, the jazz saxophone, to the funky drums that come from funk music, to the layered voices that we mentioned with the lots of reverb to make them sound like they're far away or distant, they all come together to make this big idea of drawing inspiration from the past to inspire the present come true. So we have gone from spirituals to blues to jazz, freedom songs, and now hip hop, all within a genre by African Americans. I'd like you to think for a moment about how we use some of these things that are at the bottom of the slide. You know, there was music knowledge that we talked about, melody, rhythm, texture, timbres, context. And we also talked about musical actions like improvisation and sampling. And we needed to learn about these things in order to find this statement that African Americans drew inspiration from the past to be true. Had we not listened closely to the music and identified this necessary support, we would not have found this statement to be true. So with that in mind, what music from your past could you draw inspiration from? And this can be in any genre. So what music do you know that draws inspiration from the past that could inspire you? And if you'd like to come on stage, just type stage in the chat, or you can write it in the chat. But what music from your past could you draw inspiration from? Beatles, classic rock, jazz, third wave ska, funk music, Texas country, 90s hip hop, Motown. And in all of these examples, it could be any number of musical things that make you feel inspiration from them. You might be picked one because of the drums. It could be the way of singing. It could be what the words are expressing. There's so much within just these genres alone that could be studied and be sources of inspiration. Any others? We'll take one more. Any other music you could draw inspiration from? Any genre that includes improv. Yeah, there's a freedom in music that has improv, and that's a freedom that sometimes we need, and especially in a period of time when we are remote. Gotta have a horn section. Yeah, some of my favorite music growing up was by Earth, Wind & Fire, and that horn section, I feel like I've arrived when I hear it. So, yeah, thank you for that. So I want to help you incorporate music into your self-care, and I feel like if you do it for your self-care, you'll also do it. Why not do it for your learning spaces? I use music in the background all the time. I turn on music, and that's something that kind of regulates my emotions. But if you do what we did today by really close listening to the music, you can find inspiration within that song. So I'm really making an advertisement for close listening, because the closer you listen to all the layers in the music, the more sources of inspiration you can find. So I'm actually going to lead you through a process to help you find some inspiration today from the music you already know. The music of my youth right now is inspiring my current understanding. So while I was in very quarantined, I was listening to some of my childhood music. I started making mixes of my some of music that was like at the same tempo and like kind of put them together and made hour-long mixes. And now that's something I listen to while I'm exercising, while I'm journaling, while I'm cooking. Like it just and it pulls me into so many different directions. So I'm doing this because it's inspiring me to create music based on that big idea of drawing inspiration from the past. Some ideas I'm thinking of is to sample some of my childhood music in my own music, or to use the sound quality of my childhood music, which is the sound of vinyl and cassette, and use that kind of sound when I'm crafting new music for myself. So I'm going to walk you through a process to help you create something from the music of your past. So this will require a journal or something to write with. And first, I would like you to imagine a context in which you felt a strong sense of freedom and power. There may have been limitations, but nonetheless, you felt free and strong. You're going to take about 2 minutes to sketch or note this context, this place, this time, this situation, and aim to capture about 3 artifacts that are unique to that. So if I were doing a context where I felt free or a sense of power, I'm going to draw a context of when I was little and watching music videos as a kid. So my context would include a cassette player or a VHS player, a video game controller, because I used to listen, I love the 16-bit sound of old video games, and I might draw a high chair because that's where I watch music videos for the first time. So take 2 minutes and sketch or note a context in which you felt free or a sense of power. As you're finishing up that sketch or that journal entry, just about the context, I want you to think, how is this context different than your present?
Our present right here in the moment, talking to you, sitting in a chair, or our present in quarantine in this world we're in right now?
All of the above. So any of that. So now that you kind of have the workings of a context in which you felt free or a sense of power, I want you to listen to that context. So put yourself in that place and think what music would be in the background or capture where you were at that moment. What would that music be? So again, what is the soundtrack to that context you just noted? Hamilton. Can I hear some other examples? So we have right now Dear Theodosia from Hamilton. Free Bird. Who Wouldn't Want to Be Me? Keith Urban. Singing any Disney music in the car with my daughter. Oh, I love it. Stairway to Heaven. Ooh, Sutherland, Sugarland. So I'm wondering, like, why did you choose this music? What is your, like, favorite idea about this music? Take a moment right now, and I just want you to think about one musical aspect of the songs that you wrote down that's, like, your favorite. And in your own words, it can be, you can use music vocabulary as we know it in the learning space, or just describe it. But using your own words, kind of describe what is your favorite aspect about some of this music. So I've taken you through a protocol that so far has you identifying a context, placing yourself in that context, listening to that context, and then identifying what's your favorite musical aspect, sound aspect about that context. And if you kind of follow that protocol, that can be something that you add to your own artistry that will help you create something new. So the last step of this protocol is to do what we noticed in all of the musical samples before, is to repurpose that musical idea to turn it into something new. And so I'd like you to think about that. If the favorite aspect of the music was improvising, how can you improvise in a similar way in visual arts or in a movement sequence? If your favorite aspect was the fact that instruments were talking to each other, how could that conversation quality show up in an improvised theater piece? How could it show up in a media arts produced collage? So I'm actually going to help you do that. So, and I would like us to kind of collaborate together. So this can be through sound, or it can be through the chat feature. But I want you to think, how can you turn that favorite aspect of your music into something new? All right, so if you could type it in the chat or just write the word stage and we'll bring you on stage. You're just going to describe what your favorite musical idea was and then what you think you could do from that. And we are here to help if you are stuck on any of that. So something you liked about the music, your favorite, and then something you think you could do based on that. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. The chat is, it's filling up. Sorry about that. I wasn't scrolling. Okay. I feel a sense of power when I'm leading students in performing processional music to send the graduates out in the world, which is why it was important for us to perform this year for the recording. Yeah. So taking that normal format, but repurposing it for a virtual format is definitely showing this big idea to be true. Listening to rock in the car, the energy of music, and how the performance would be interactive, great singable melodies, relatable lyrics. I don't care what it is, all music is better with multiple people involved. So the idea of collaboration. And Randall agrees, yes, Tom, a crowd singing an artist song back to them has always given me chills. Amy's going to come on stage for a moment and share her favorite musical idea, and then we're going to work together to see what new things could be created from that. So, Amy?
Oh, so so I was going to comment on that. So earlier this morning, and I know Michael Bell is on here, but we talked about big ideas in visual arts as well. So for me, it was the relatable lyrics, but I'm thinking if there was like a piece of the whatever song, a big idea in the song, and then if art teachers and music teachers, especially at the elementary level, could work together to explore big ideas at once, then as a visual arts student, I might be visually writing down words or creating pictures or putting colors together somehow to express a big idea. And then at the same time in art class, I'm exploring how would I take that same concept and explore it through melodies or lyrics or something like that. Just an idea that popped in my head.
Is it Jacob Lawrence and his series? Yeah, like the minute I look at his collages, I immediately hear it. And so like looking at how he was taking elements of what he saw and put that together, I can think of so many sound ways of doing that. And I'm sure someone can listen to Ornette Coleman's Free Jazz and think about a collage that could come from that. So that conversational quality that's in the music could inspire visuals, and visuals could do the same thing for sound. Thank you. Yeah. EJ, the more the better. Yeah. For non-music, yeah, she does. Ashley is agreeing with Amy. Yeah. No labels here. We're all experiencing music. So I think that just proves that all arts can speak to and through one another. Not allowed. So we are getting low on time, so I am going to wrap up with some ideas for you to think about moving forward. We engage big ideas through music by close listening. If you do so, I think your actions will reflect your values. Like if I value learning from the past, my artistic actions can do the same.